Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Hugs and Kisses podcast. My name is Salo Matza, and I am your host. Today, we have a very special guest. Pathy's here with us. Can you please introduce yourself for the people
Sure.
who don't know?
Yeah, my name is Pathy Leiva. I'm the Director of Access and Opportunity Programs here at SUNY Oneonta, which houses our EOP, CAMP, and ACE programs. And if you know a student in those programs, then that's what I do. And my pronouns are she and her.
And you guys are currently in NETSA, right?
Yeah, actually, my camp staff is actually down in Wilsbeck, and
Okay.
right the opposite end of the food, I would say, on the
Mhm.
other side. And then our EOP and ACE program are right in NETSA on the first floor.
All right. That's good. If you didn't know, those are where the resources are held.
Stop by.
The first question is, can you tell us a little bit about your experience as a first-generation college student, some of the challenges you faced, and how you overcame them?
Sure. I've actually been having conversations about first generation. I came when I was 9 years old from Peru with my family, and we were pretty lucky that we were able to be residents, permanent residents. So, and that can be a struggle even for a first generation student as they
Right.
come to this country.
Mhm.
I think through college it was really hard because there was nothing that I can compare it to. Right? My
Right.
parents don't understand what college is here in America,
Right.
and they didn't speak the language as well. I know they worked really hard for me and my sister. She's the oldest one.
Mhm.
But it was tough because no one to translate things for us, no one to explain to us, no one can check our homework. Just kind of doing it on your own,
Right.
you know. And my sister and I, yeah, we had each other's bags, but you know, it's not perfect because we're still kids. So how do you know, you know?
Right.
And I think the struggles that most people face as a first generation student is just being able to have somebody to support you, to kind of show you the way.
Mhm.
Even college, I'll tell you right now, my school counselor, he talked about the boats he had. And so I knew about boats, but didn't know how to apply to college. Luckily, my friends helped me, and that kind of
Mhm.
helped too. And my sister helped me a little bit too, so that made a big difference. So I think a lot of students at school, right? Some grade school counselors, some people that are saying that don't bother going to college, and those are obstacles that we face. We may not always hear all these negative things, but it does happen. So.
Right. Everything like slowly starts to impact you in those small ways. Like I feel like even when you said like there's no one to help you with your homework, like I feel like that's a big thing for me. Like
Yeah.
now when I'm writing my papers and like I can't just like send it to like my parents and be like what do you think? Like what should I write about it? Because
Yeah.
like they don't know about the college system in America.
Absolutely.
Which makes things more difficult and challenging.
Mhm.
You had an older sister. In any way did she like help guide you in that way, or do you feel like you guys were doing it like at the same time?
Well, we're 18 months apart, so
Okay.
she did start first, so she paved the way for me to go away.
Mhm.
She had a deal with my mom that she would go to college for 1 year. We're from Yonkers.
Okay.
She went to Mount St. Vincent, and so
I'm from the Bronx.
there you go. A hop and a skip.
Right, that's
So
perfect.
she went there for a year, and she proved that she could do it. So then she let her go, and then so she picked SUNY Buffalo. So she went far.
She went pretty far.
That's where she met her husband, and you know they have 2 children. So it was a great experience. Like that first generation, like was really tough for her. So it really helped me so that I can come here. I actually went to Harvard College back in the day when they gave laptops and printers included in your package deal. So
And now we
yeah.
have to pay for textbooks.
Right. So, but the best part was that I did have my sister to help me, and then I had some friends that really helped me, but everything was brand new to me as a first generation.
Like you're kind of just like solving problems as they come along.
Problem solving,
Right.
absolutely.
Because you just don't know like what's ahead or like what to expect. And I feel like having other first generation students to talk to about that stuff like made it
Yeah.
a lot easier to like navigate through the process. And even now, like doing these interviews, like I've kind of learned like, okay, you're not alone. Like there are resources and all these things to, like help you as you go along in your journey.
Yeah. It'd been nice if I had known a lot of this stuff too. So,
I feel like you just come across it as like problems arise. Like I feel like I find
Yeah.
myself like complaining about things, and they're like, "Listen, like there's the office that like solves that problem." You're just like, "Oh, that would have been nice to know before I was like hitting my head against a wall for a few weeks
Absolutely.
now."
yeah.
In your opinion, what are some common misconceptions or stereotypes about first generation college students?
Oh, that's a good question. I think the stereotype that, right, depending on whether you know certain languages or not, that, you know, you don't know English if you have an accent, or that you know, come from another country so you don't understand. There are things we don't understand, but the people that have multi-language are pretty bright. You know, I always
Right.
tell students, I'm like, they're like, oh, they're making fun of me because I speak Spanish, let's say, right? Because I speak Spanish. And I'm like, well, isn't it interesting how they're making fun of you, but you know 2 languages, and that person knows what, one barely,
language.
right? There are people who are like, I just watched a documentary where the kid was like, how many languages do you know? And someone said like 2, and they're like, oh, I know 6, and she was like 10. I was like, how did that happen? You know? So I think the misconception is that people are not smart, that they don't know, that they're predominantly poor, or that they don't know anything. And yeah, they may not come from like wealthy backgrounds, but a lot of people they're still starting off. Their families are struggling, you know? And I think just the idea that they're not, they don't know what they're doing. But yeah, we may not know what we're doing as first generation, but the point is that we learn as we go, you know? So
I think the misconception that like we may be like less smart because we speak other languages primarily, or like English isn't your first language, is like something that was like really hard for me to like overcome, because I feel like a lot of like expectations that were set were kind of like below average. Like you were just not expected to do many things just because English wasn't your first language. And I feel like a lot of that lowballing kind of like hinders confidence when it comes to like first gen students.
Absolutely.
Especially in college. I was going to speak to another point that you made.
Language.
Or just like we don't know things. I feel like just because like you didn't grow up in America, or like you're a first generation student, like people kind of expect you to be like entirely culturally unaware, like you don't have anything to contribute to these spaces. And I feel like that's just like a wrong assumption about us. Like I still like know a lot of culture, and I like have a lot to like contribute to spaces. Being first generation, and just because like we're different doesn't mean like we don't know everything, like in that sense.
Well, if anything, you have so much to give. You know, I think we were just having a conversation with someone earlier today about imposter syndrome, and I think even with first generation students, there's a lot of imposter syndrome because we don't know, right? They make us feel less than, they make us feel like insecure. They're literally throwing shade at you, right? About things all the time. And then, and that's what makes us feel like the imposter syndrome is real. You know, and I always say, like, you know, I'm not here just because I was nice or I got lucky. So I always say, like, push away. Just push away imposter syndrome, because you know what? I'm here. I got here for a reason. And it's harder for younger students. I was your age at one point, so I understand. But always try to say, you know, back off.
Push it away. Like you kind of like earned your spot here, and like even if you're like not, you haven't had the same experiences as your peers, like you're still valuable to this space. Like difference is important.
Look at you all doing this. This is amazing.
This is so cool. Like
this
I
is
always
the
think
best.
about it. I really love it, like given this opportunity. And a part of like pushing that imposter syndrome away is also like finding the people who are going to like support you and like uplift you and tell you like you are capable of doing things, and like people who push you instead of just like I don't know, like I keep saying lowballing, but people who like expect less of you just because you're first generation.
Just making you feel negative, making you feel like you don't belong, right? That sense of belonging we talk about in college is very real when you have people around you saying that you don't belong, and you're trying to find that connection. Like this is your connection, this is a part of you, and now you can give now to more people, so they feel like, you know, you're not the only one that feels this way. You know, so you're doing something really valuable, not just for yourself, but for the community.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope everyone gets that takeaway. Like this is as much like our safe space as it is yours.
Great.
The next question is, how did your family's expectations and cultural background influence your college experience? And what advice do you have for other first generation students who are dealing with that?
So I'm a Hispanic background, right? I'm from Peru. My parents, I don't think my mom wanted to come to America, but it was the opportunity. And it was a good opportunity. And my dad just felt like it was like, this is great, you know? But the idea of going away to college, in Peru, I can't say for all countries, but in Peru, you went into the city to go to college, but you rented a room or you travel around to get to the college, but you always went home. So there was no dorm room style. So when my parents heard of college here in America, they were like, you're not going away. And I was like, but I want to go away. I want to experience it. And so it was tough. It was hard for them to understand it. That's why my sister has such a hard time. And, you know, because of her, I guess, like sacrifices, I had a chance to go away. I don't think I'd have this experience or this opportunity where I am today if it wasn't for that. But then more importantly, my parents always blamed college for everything that we did, totally different. You know, like,
Yeah.
oh, you're talking back. But I'm
That's
not
so
really
real.
talking back at all,
That's
you know?
so real. Anything that
yeah.
you do that they necessarily don't agree with, they'll be like, it's
Yeah.
because you went away for college. It's like, no, like,
Right.
I'm growing up.
Yeah.
Like, I'm
It's
finding my
like-
own perspective on life.
I mean, that was just one. I mean, I mean, I'll tell you the craziest. She's like, because I came out to my parents in my sophomore year, and she's like, college made you gay, and I was like, well, if only that could be true.
If that's how it works.
that would be crazy, but that was probably. I don't think she meant it. That's just she was going through a lot, and so my parents are good people. They love me. But a lot of their misconceptions and a lot of their scariness, right? The scariness of letting go of your child really influenced a lot of what I did. I didn't go far away. I think 3.5 hours was pretty decent. My sister went 10, so I thought, you know, somewhere in the middle helped out.
Give them a break, you
yeah.
know?
So and I would try to go home, and you know, but it was far enough. They weren't going to go unless they told me, and they weren't going to get on a bus to get there. So I had my freedom. So because you're almost like living two lives. You know, your life in America in college and your life back home with your culture. And you don't mix them, you know, until you get older, and then you realize how you can blend those together. But I think that, you know, that was tough. Now I already forgot the second part of your question. What was the other part? Anybody remember?
Would you have any advice for students,
yeah.
like kind of dealing with that, like blending that you're talking about?
Oh, yeah,
in terms
that's a
of,
good
like,
idea.
The college life and the culture.
Definitely don't create two lives for yourselves. It's too hard. It's people feel guilty when they call their parents because they feel like they don't understand what you've been through, right? Like you go to school and you're like, oh my God, I learned all these awesome stuff. I want to tell my parents, but they're like, I don't get it. So there's that guilt, right? But it's more like, how do you involve your parents in what you're doing in college, make them feel proud of you, and not have to hide who you are?
Right.
You know, it's a very slow process. It's maybe just a few words, understanding when you go home, maybe having conversations about these really important topics, and having them contribute to the conversation. Because maybe what you learned, you can bring to the college. Your parents are bright. They might have not gone to college, but that doesn't mean they're not the brightest people. They have life experience, and that is huge, you know, so.
Like finding a way to like bring them into your studies. Like
absolutely.
Currently, I'm doing a research project on my parents, and so in that aspect, it's kind of just like, just because they didn't like, you know, have a traditional college experience like I'm having, like dorming and stuff like that. First of all, I'm the oldest, and me going away from school, like I hope my brothers understand and appreciate the road and the sacrifice that I had to pay, you know, create and like pave the road for, because it was a huge conversation in my household in terms of like, I was not even expected to like apply to schools like far away. Like it was kind of just like, okay, like an hour away, you're pushing it. And now I'm 3 hours and some change away, so I really did it. And it's like convincing them like, no, like this is my dream school, like look how pretty it is and all those things. So appreciate the first gen, appreciate your older siblings. We're doing a lot.
You're paving the way.
We're paving the way. And another thing is like it can be hard to like find the words to explain like everything that you're learning in school. But another thing that I found hard was like explaining to them like school is hard, and they're like, okay, like what's so hard about being a student? And so you don't feel that you have that room to complain, and so that's why for a long time like I kept things very separate, because it feels so small to be complaining about school and finals when like they're trying to figure out bills and literally the crime rate in New York City currently. Like I feel like
I understand.
They're all problems, but maybe not certainly on the same level. For a long time, I kind of felt a little guilty like bringing those things up.
But it's valid. I mean, your problems here at college are very valid, and they're things that, you know, not knowing how to deal with are so important to you, you know. So having resources, mentors, people, mental health, you know, support, all those things matter. And I think your parents, you know, every parent is different. So I think that it's still okay to say, well, this is the most important thing happening in my life right now. And college is hard. I don't think they really understand because, it's not like this is high school and you get these many classes and, you know, 9 to 3. And, you know, did they like to call at 6 in the morning? Like, do they wake you up at 6 in the morning?
Yeah.
Right. That was hurtful. Like, when I was going to bed late. It was a
long while, and I was like, listen, you can't do this anymore. My mom woke me up this morning.
I was like, why do you need to call at 6? I mean, I wake up at 6 now, but I'm also 44 now. You know what I mean? I'm not an 18-year-old when you're calling at 6, and I'm like, why is this ringing?
It's like I went to sleep like 3 hours ago.
Yeah, and they're like, why? I'm like, I was writing a paper. I mean, at the end of the day, you're writing papers, you're listening to, you're just trying to get it all done, and you're just one person, you know? But parents are always going to be supportive. They're always going to be great, but just understanding some things could take a little time.
Right. I feel like they're coming around to it. My mom finally understands why I freak out during finals week. She's in nursing school right now, so.
Oh, she gets it.
She gets it now. She gets it now.
Good for her.
Yeah. How has camp and EOP/AOP helped students on campus? Are there any resources on campus which help first generation college students?
Yeah, so our programs are predominantly, the students are all first generation. And how we help them, each program gives a different amount of money. Each program has advisors or counselors for them. They're specifically to help them. And we provide a lot of tutoring, study hours, support for textbooks, school supplies. These are programs that are transitional from high school into college, and they're supposed to hold your hand throughout the process to kind of really show you what you need, because all these students have a financial and an academic need, and they weren't accepted as regular admits, right? Regular admits are expected, and I don't believe this is true, but they're expected that they have their act together and they know what they're doing and their grades are high because they're so smart, and therefore they don't need any help. But let's be real, not only do my students need it, but general admit students also come from a deficit, an educational gap.
Right.
You know, there was COVID, there was all these different things, and every single one of those students that come in as regular admits still need support. They still need hand holding. You know, I do like how our college does provide support, especially if they're failing. There's these courses available to them, that there are places where they can go. Next year, academic advisement is changing how they're doing things, right?
Okay.
Every first year student is going to be assigned somebody in that area. The upperclassmen could still attend and get, you know, help from them. You know, financial aid is even more involved this year. They're doing until like 6, 7 o'clock on Tuesdays and Thursdays. They're doing financial aid to help people if they don't know how to do their financial aid. Because as you know, better FAFSA that has come out has been not better, but it has been interest in FAFSA. I can see it in your face. You know
I
what
have
mean?
some words for the board.
Yeah.
Who decided? Who was it?
I don't know. You have to go higher than that. But you know, those are the things that we provide to our students. When I think about our general admission students, almost every department will help you. You know, we have, you know, obviously you've had Keisha on here. They do a great work with often and the commuters, off-campus and commuter students, and that helps our students too, because we don't always know what's going on, but they may be going to her, right? John does an amazing job at this, what is it, the student wellness. I already forget those. It's like student care and wellness, I want to say.
I'm like, the titles are
John,
jumbling.
I'm so sorry, John. I just like can't remember. And that's a brand new program. I mean, they're helping with, you know, food pantries. They're helping with takeaway bags for commuters when they go home if they're hungry. You know, even any of you can just stop to grab a snack.
Right.
Like, just because you're not eating,
When
you
I'm
should
in
stop. There you go.
I'll stop by.
Yeah, but you know, I think all these different departments, even if it's not just for the services, the mentorship.
Right.
They all want to talk to you. They want to know, what can we do? What is out there that we can do for you? You know, we have great student affairs VP, a great provost. Our president being Latinx makes a huge difference, right? They all are always saying, they just want to know. They may be administration, but they are the administration that cares. You know, so I think that's really important. So even though we do support our specific students in AOP, that doesn't mean that, you know, people stop by all the time and talk to me, and I can say, you know what, let me connect you to so-and-so and so-and-so, so then other people can help them.
Right. I think a huge part of it is just like being aware of the resources that are available to you.
Yeah.
And even if you may not need them right away, or you don't need to use the resources, just going in and saying hi and making yourself familiar with these people and these faces is a huge way of like creating this ecosystem and network to make college easier, because I wasn't admitted as an EOP student, but I have used a lot of the resources that are available to students to, you know, make my first generation college student experience a lot better and a smoother transition from high school to college. And just like talking to people, like you just said, like a lot of people want to hear what students are thinking about, what students need. So just going into the offices and talking, if you have a little bit of time to kill, like makes a huge difference, because they're actually hearing from the population that they're serving.
Right.
Because there's a lot of money, there's a lot of resources going into this, and it would be a huge waste if students weren't taking advantage of it.
Right.
And I think that's the most like important part, like doing this and like, go talk to Pathy.
I mean, if you stop by just to say hi and you have a question, I have 2 students today that they're not my students, but they always stop by. They're like, I want to do this. I was like, oh, go see so-and-so in financial aid, go see so-and-so in registrar's office. And even if you get that, at least you get there and get started, right? Because you may not know the questions to ask, but I just told you something. Now go do it, And, I mean, you think about our Chief Diversity Officer in OEI. I mean, she's created a space that really is for a lot of students, for every student that doesn't have. And they have so many new staff there that are like willing to work with you. And I think we have to use every department as much as possible, because I wish I'd had all this stuff available when I was a student, but I also wouldn't have known, right? Because nobody guided me. I think nowadays, most colleges are doing a much better job at pushing these programs out there, but you guys do get bombarded with emails and text messages and all this stuff, so hopefully you see it and it's something you can use.
And generally it's also just more impactful to like hear it from a friend, a mentor, instead of like going through the email, because you might read the email and not like remember off the top of your head like when you need something that is a resource to go to. But just like asking people for help and their opinion and making yourself more familiar makes it a lot easier.
Absolutely.
To, build that connection and again, ecosystem to support yourself for the rest of the years that you're here, to have a successful college experience, whether it be like with doing research, paying your rent,
how to do anything.
How to do anything, because nothing is quite straightforward in America, including FAFSA, but
that's another day, another story.
That's a story for another day. I keep having to go back and forth with them. That's fine. That's
You'll
okay.
get there.
We'll figure it out.
Well,
Give
now
me
you
my
know,
aid.
right?
Run me my money.
Now you know that you can go to financial aid and make an appointment, and actually they can help you with it, so you don't have to do it by yourself.
And that they're open later for students as well, because I think that helps. Excuse me. Another part is like having hours that are like accessible for students and available for us, because when you're looking at class schedules and students who are working or who live off campus, those hours are really helpful when they're extended.
Absolutely.
It was so nice talking to you. Do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share? Words of advice?
I think, always starting a conversation with somebody that you may not know. I know it's scary, but even asking questions can create this relationship. People, I'm not afraid to talk to people, that's my thing, but some people are introverted. But if you can make time to just talk to an adult that's a professor, anything, you never know what's out there for you. And last thing is, we actually have a summer program. We're still hiring students, and we are giving a few internships away, so that we hope that people want to do it. Some are in, one is in financial aid, one is in recreation and media, another one's in recreation and wellness, and one that we haven't decided, so it's a multi one.
Okay.
So if people are looking for that, they should reach out to our office, and then we're still hiring people for teachers' assistants. So I hope that this way you can also learn from what we do and give back to students who are coming in as first years. We're hoping to have 135 this summer.
Oh wow, that's pretty cool. So. And that way, I like that the program creates a mentor-mentee relationship that continues to grow with more and more classes coming in.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, I really enjoyed talking to you. And I hope everyone takes the time to use these resources, stop by and say hi. Talk to anyone, introduce yourself. I feel like that's a lost art. I feel like I rarely come into a room and say, hi, my name is Salamata, but introduce yourself by your real name, whatever preferred name. I don't know. Now I'm going on a tangent. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Hugs and Kisses. I'm your host, Salamata. Tune in next week for another episode.
Oh, I